Life is a series of decisions, some grand, some small. Life is also an emotional roller coaster, some joyous, some painful. Video games are a form of escapism. So what happens when your escapist entertainment challenges your real-world notions of right and wrong? What happens when it tugs at emotions you thought were limited to the living world? NieR happens, that's what. From the creative unbound genius of Yoko Taro, this series, especially Automata, has no qualms in tackling sensitive subjects. However, it does so in an organic way, giving you time to explore and absorb events from multiple perspectives. Taro-san does not pick sides. He leaves that decision to you. So sit back, relax, and hear our side of the story. Oh, and spoiler alert, we will dig deeply into the themes and events of NieR Automata. I'll be back after the show. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Obsessive Compulsive Gamer Podcast. I guess I should be looking at my camera when I'm doing this part. I'd like to welcome to you all to this episode on NieR. For those of you not familiar with NieR, you may not know that there are two games in the series. Some of you have probably heard of Automata, but didn't know that there is actually a game prior to Automata simply called NieR. And I'm sure George, who's in the podcast today, will gladly give us great details as to the differences between NieR in Japan as well as NieR in the rest of the world. Was that right?
Sure. Yeah. The original game, there's not that many differences, to be honest, but there are a couple ones, and they're pretty key. So it's important to talk about them and to talk about why those differences were made.
Well, we'll get
because
to those.
I think it's important to consider them in context of the game as a whole.
Yeah, they do have a big impact. And unfortunately, I've never played the original NieR, but we'll get all into the meat of that in a moment. But let's go ahead and get started with introductions. I got several returning members with us today. We'll start off with the gentleman in the top left with the sonic barrage of things behind him.
What's up? I'm Mike B. Been here a few times. Good to be back to talk about NieR. Love it. Or NieR Automata, because that's the only one I've played.
And then I've already inadvertently introduced George to the podcast. He's coming back. George, what other podcasts have you done with us?
I just was in the one when you guys had me talk about Blaze Blue, actually, or Blaz Blue, if you want to call it that.
Has that really been the only other one you've done with us?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Okay. We need to bring you back more often. And then right below George and Mike, we got our returning member, Mike Prime. If you'll please tell us what podcast you participated in.
What's up, everyone? I've been in both the Final Fantasy and the Mass Effect podcasts, and this is the first podcast I'll be doing with an actual camera.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is on my iPad plugged into my PC, so we'll see how that works.
Yeah, we'll see how well it holds up. And then you may notice DoMyCon, which is a representative of our good friend Frank, who's just dropping in today. So probably throughout the entire podcast, Mike B is probably going to edit various images over that icon, so it'll be like he's not actually here. So, moving on. So, as I stated earlier, we are going to be covering NieR today, and we will be talking about both games, and we will also be talking about Yoko Taro's history, who's the creator of NieR, because there are games that he did prior to NieR that really lead up to what NieR Automata became. And those are going to be really relevant to what we're talking about today. So to start off with our first question, actually about Yoko Taro. Yoko Taro is the original creator of NieR and its follow-up. Are you familiar with any of his other works, and to what extent? So we'll start with you, Mike B. What do you know about Yoko Taro's history?
I actually know nothing about it, except maybe that he was a background artist in Time Crisis 2, supposedly.
Really?
I've read that before. But
I did not know that.
That's all I know, because I only jumped in onto this game, and then I could go into more detail later, probably for a later question. But I mean, I only got into this game because of George.
That is very well true for me as well. How about you, Prime? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'll tell a story about that in one of the questions later.
All right. And so, Mike Prime, do you know any of Yoko Taro's previous games?
The only two that I'm aware of were Drakengard 3 and, of course, the original NieR. I really didn't know anything about him or any of these series prior to NieR Automata, because I played Automata first before I played any of the other games. But yeah, that was, I guess I started from the end, and then I'm slowly working my way backwards.
So you have played the original NieR, and you've also played Drakengard 3.
Not all the way through, but I have both games, and I have played like most of the way through Drakengard 3 and a little bit into NieR.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I have not had the opportunity to play any of his previous games, so I'm not familiar with them. All right, George, we know you're the history buff on this, so let it go. Let's go.
Well, Yoko Taro first started out as a game director on a game called Drakengard. Just plain old Drakengard here in the West. In Japan, he was known as Drag on Dragoon, DOD for short. It's a weird name, so they decided to change it to Drakengard here on the in the West. And if we want to talk about Drakengard in relation to the NieR series, it happens in the same, I guess if you want to call it multiverse. Fans have taken to calling it the Taro Bears, because even though the games are not necessarily set in the same continuity, they still have references to each other throughout. And this is where it gets a little bit complicated, actually, because we have the Drakengard 1 has several different endings that branch out into different timelines, if you want to call it that. And in one of them, the protagonist and his dragon, Angelus, end up in Tokyo fighting against the final boss, the Queen Grotesquerie of the first Drakengard. And supposedly the end of that particular ending leads into NieR, because the timeline of NieR is exactly the same as our real world timeline up until that point, the point where the dragon and the queen get teleported to modern day Tokyo. And from the explosions and the particles that get released from the queen of monsters, that's where you start the NieR story after that.
Okay,
so it's really interesting to know about all that. So yeah, I've you have Drakengard 1 and 3, which are the ones in the main continuity, and then Drakengard 3 leads into Drakengard 1, which leads into NieR, which then leads into NieR Automata.
Okay, so Drakengard 3 is a prequel to 1?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and does Drakengard 2 fit into this at all?
It doesn't, actually. Yoko Taro was hardly involved in Drakengard 2. Okay. So most people actually don't consider it to be canon. It's a cool game, and it follows the events of Drakengard 1, one of the endings of Drakengard 1 directly, but it's not really considered to be canon in the continuity of the Taro Bears so far.
Okay. So then by destroying the queen, so for the audience members who may not be familiar with the way NieR is, I know that in NieR there is a disease that's run rampant amongst mankind, and that disease came from the destruction of that monster queen, correct?
Yes, it's called the white chlorination syndrome. Basically what it does is that there's these particles hanging out in the air that if you breathe in too many of them, it turns you into salt, a pillar of salt. And then from there, you can turn into what's called they had a name for it. I don't remember anymore. But those pillars of salt kind of gain sentience and become soldiers for this man with the red eyes. That a lot of people have theorized that is the protagonist from the first Drakengard game, looking for vengeance for his slain dragon. But yeah, there's supposedly an army of pillars of salt.
Hi, Brenda.
Hi, Brenda. Brenda came up on the back. 1 minute, guys. 1 minute. Sorry.
No problem.
All right. Sorry, I totally forgot where I was even.
No, I think we're good. The big thing is we got the questions answered about what you know about Yoko Taro's universe of games. So I know he was the original director on Drakengard, but do you remember, because he had worked on games prior to Drakengard, but not as a director. Do you know any of his previous games?
No, honestly, he did not have a lot of creative control over those games, and it kind of shows because there's really not that many games that are really that remarkable that he worked on previously. He's the characteristic for his games is that Yoko Taro is just kind of an oddball, and that's what his fans look for in games, that kind of oddball characteristic, and it wasn't really present in any of the prior games that he worked on.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So now all of us here have played NieR Automata, but what we're going to talk about now is the original NieR. So what is your opinion of it? Now I know Mike B and I can't really speak towards this because we haven't played the original NieR, but Mike Prime, we'll start with you since you did have some playtime with it. Tell us, what did you think?
From what I played, it seemed like a pretty solid game. I remember thinking that the visuals surprisingly were like really good because I don't remember when the game came out, but I didn't play it until like maybe 2 years ago or so.
And this is a PS3, Xbox 360 era game, correct?
Correct. So that was one of the things I noticed was like I really love the visuals and the environment, and the music, in my opinion, is probably on par with NieR Automata's soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
The only thing I would probably say is that NieR Automata's obviously gameplay was platinum, and you can tell because Automata is way more fluid in controls than the original NieR was. Doesn't make NieR a bad game or anything. I mean, I still enjoyed playing it, what I did play of it, but I did see it seemed simplistic to me in comparison to Automata. And keep in mind, I played Automata before the original NieR, so it was interesting to play that and then go back to the other game. But unfortunately, like I said, my PS3 has been having problems for years, and I really should get a replacement for it because the video is damaged or something, and it keeps crapping out on me. So I never got to finish the game, unfortunately.
Well, we do have a remaster of NieR coming out this year, though I don't think the official release date's been announced, right?
Not that I've heard.
Not date yet, unfortunately, but I am very excited for that personally.
Yeah, me too. I'll definitely play it on there, unless I can get like another means of playing this game.
Right. How about you, George? What do you think?
Well, the original game, at least compared to Automata, I feel that it's very flawed, but at the same time, it doesn't make it a bad game necessarily. I don't think that the gameplay is as polished, obviously, and some of the quests, for example, and some of the stuff like that, I guess you could say that it was executed a little bit amateurish. For example, the fishing controls, my God, I struggled so much with fishing in that game, and it was just kind of like, there were a couple side quests that you were just like, man, this feels like such a chore to play. But honestly, the story to me was fantastic. I love the story. Those characters, I fell in love with them, and I came to care for them, for the whole gang, for Papa NieR, which is the one that I played, NieR Gestalt, which is the Western release that we got. I'm sure we'll get into that eventually. Kaine, Emil, even the book, Grimoire. They were all great characters, and it was a great adventure to follow. And I can't wait to see what they do with this modernized version that's gonna come out soon. Those are some great characters that are very close to my heart, and I can't wait to revisit them. You know?
Yeah. Well, before we start delving into our next question, because it covers more Automata, go ahead and explain to us the differences between NieR Gestalt and the one that was released in Japan.
Sure. Well, in I guess it was more of a cultural difference. There's two versions of the game: NieR Gestalt and NieR Replicant. NieR Gestalt was the one that came out in the Xbox 360 in Japan, and in both the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 here in the West. The reason for that being is that the producers of the game felt that it was a more relatable story for them to use an older protagonist that was defending his daughter, as opposed to NieR Replicant, which was a younger version of the protagonist NieR, whose entire motivation for going on the adventure was protecting his sister, Yona, which on NieR Gestalt is his daughter, also Yona. So we have that variations of the story where you have a younger NieR on the Japanese version and an older, more fatherly NieR in the North American version. But other than that, the story is basically just about exactly the same. There's a couple dialogue differences here and there, and I guess you could call that the relationship between NieR and Kaine, for example, shifts a little because of that change in age. But other than that, it's basically the same game.
And
Do you think that was made for like Western culture? That change?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
They straight up went out and said it, that the reason why they made NieR older was because so it would be a more relatable story to Western audiences.
Because they know everybody has children at a young age. Everyone has children by the time they're 16 in Western culture. So were these changes also made for the European version of the game?
Yes. It's I believe the only version that came out in Europe was also Gestalt.
Okay.
If you want to get NieR Replicant, you have to get an Asian version of it.
Okay. Now, do these changes affect NieR Automata in any way?
No.
Okay.
Now, a thing to understand between Yoko Taro games is that the link between them is sometimes so tenuous that only really the main story beats are the ones that matter in the grand scheme of things, you know?
Okay. Cool. Very cool. All right. So, what aspects of Automata captured your attention? So, really, when you guys played through Automata, what was it that drew you to it and stuck with you? And then, for those of you guys that played the original NieR, in what ways do you think it improved on? Mike Prime, you hit on this a little bit earlier, but feel free to elaborate more on it. So, we'll start with you, Mike B, since you haven't had much to talk about.
Oh, for what was I? The question was what got me into it more?
Yes. What was it about Automata that captured your attention?
Before I played it or while I was playing it?
Both.
Okay, so what got me into it was basically seeing the cover box art. So, and the previous one about NieR, the first NieR was basically what, PS3 release, right? And I kind of always saw it around. I regret not playing it now because I love the Automata so much. But I kind of saw it like, what's this generic game that's just out? Like, I keep seeing it everywhere. Like, I'm not going to play this, whatever. You know? And I regret it now more than anything. And then I kind of got that again when the Automata came out. And I was like, what's this? And it's one of the ones I didn't really get like a huge release. I didn't see like that many ads everywhere. And I guess I'm a sucker for ads sometimes, or I need to be sold something in my face. But it always captured my eye because I would see the box art and I was like, yeah, that's pretty interesting. You know, the universe looks really cool. And I started remembering George plays it a lot. So every time we would hang out as a group, I would talk to George about it. I remember George, I'm pretty sure George remembers it a lot, that I would always ask him all the time, like, what's this, what's that? And he would kind of go into detail explaining it. And that would like intrigue me even more. I'm like, oh, wow, that sounds really cool. So it's not really just about some, you know, chick with a nice ass and long legs, you know? That was my first thing I saw on the cover. So, but yeah, so the stories that George was presenting me, or how, without spoiling it too much, he would like explain minor details of what the basis of the storyline is about. So that intrigued me into it. And I eventually, Frank actually had an extra copy and he asked if I wanted it. So I was always hesitant about getting it, but then Frank's like, do you want it? And I was like, oh yeah, I want to try that. So thanks, Frank, for that. And that totally changed my whole outlook at the whole thing. I regret playing the first one. During the game, are we talking some spoilers in a way or no?
Yeah, spoilers are good, man. This game's old enough.
All right.
Not have to worry about it.
So the moment I knew I was totally 100% invested into this game for the storyline alone was the moment you beat the story the first time as 2B and you continue as 9S. And I already think in this game, oh, this is really cool. And then when she started as 9S, I'm like, oh, this is cool. I mean, I guess you're playing the game again as 9S. I guess I could do it again as 9S. And the defining moment is, I forgot the boss's name. What's the one that sings, George?
Simone.
Yeah. When you get to that boss battle again with 9S, and since he's a hacker and he hacks into the robots, that moment you hack in, you start seeing her perspective of things or her memories and everything like that. With the, like, if you guys play it, or if you ever eventually play it, people who haven't played it, you'll see, like, you know, Jean Paul's history with him and her, and why she is the way she is, or how she's like that. And you get no idea of that when you play through the 2B. You just think you're fighting some bad guy that's a boss and that's crazy and that's killing androids and stuff. And once that happened, I was like, okay, this is not just a second playthrough. This is a completely different angle of the game. And once that happened, I was like, oh, I know what's happening here. They're going to do this for every single major key point of major bosses. And you're going to see a different aspect of how the world is perceived through the enemy's eyes. And I'm not saying the enemies are, and that's the whole point. It actually starts showing, just because they're your enemies doesn't mean they're the bad guys or they're wrong, you know? And that was it. Like, that's when I totally became invested in that game and the story. I was like, I love this shit. This is awesome. And yeah, that's basically it for NieR Automata's storyline.
That's good
for me.
That's definitely a lot of stuff I can relate to with my playthrough. How about you, Prime?
So this is going to be kind of a long answer. So I want to tell you, like, how I learned about this game, and it was actually George's fault, like, a long time ago. So
damn you, George.
More like, thank you, George.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Nobody ever thanks me for shit around here, man.
Well, we are now, but don't get used to it.
So he mentioned it. We were all hanging out at Frank's house, and he just brought the game up at some point, and I'd never heard of it, so I Googled it, and the first thing I saw was this very early screenshot of, like, 2B, and she was surrounded by a bunch of white orbs. I guess this was before they changed it to red orbs, but it was like a very early screenshot of the game. I don't even think it had a release date yet, but there's something about that picture that just, like, drew my attention for some reason, and I just had to know more. I had to know more about it. So I followed the game for the rest of that year, and up in, like, I guess it was towards it was 2017, right? Mm-hmm. When this thing was released.
2016, wasn't it?
Was it 16 or 17?
I don't remember. George, he has his headphones off, so he doesn't know.
Or he has. I think it was 17, because I remember getting it with all the. That was the year that there was a ton of video games coming out that, like, I wanted to play.
It came out in 2018, but we knew about it. Yeah, we knew about it for a while. Came out the same year as Persona 5, actually.
Oh yeah, you're right. It was 2018.
Wow. I can't
yeah, that was a game-packed year, actually. I love 2018 in terms of games.
I spent, like,
2017 here.
2017.
Oh, 2017? I'm sorry. It's probably 2017. You guys are right.
Shit, I don't know.
Yeah.
If you guys need me to look up anything, just say so, and I can look it up while you guys are talking.
We shouldn't have to say so. You should know this automatically. That's your job here today.
I like how I just went along with George. It's like, oh yeah, it's 2018. You're right.
Yeah, no, it's 2017. I'm sorry. Gosh, I can't. 2020 doesn't count because of Corona, so it was 2 years ago.
It's been like 3 years already, man.
Jesus.
But
yeah,
anyway.
I remember 2017 was Persona 5, NieR Automata, and a whole bunch of other great games.
Yeah. So anyway, like, the demo came out before that, obviously, and I played through it. And one of the things that I did not expect this at all. So the demo is just the beginning of the game, essentially. It's just minus the opening scene with the mech mode or whatever. So So it's just, you start as 2B on the ground already, and you're just hacking and slashing through everything. And I thought that was great. I was like, oh, cool. This is like a, kind of Bayonetta-ish, like, gameplay, which is my other favorite game. And then the game came out in 2017, and it opened with that mech, like, shoot 'em up thing, and I was like, holy shit, like, I didn't know the game was going to be like this. And then you finish that first mission, and you go to the space station, then all of a sudden it's an open world game. And then I was like, holy crap. And then there are parts of the game where it's a shoot 'em up game, and then there are parts even in the first mission where it switches to a side scroller, and then an over the top like game. And that was the thing that like made me love this game. Also the story, but just the game did so much to make you not get bored. Like, it was always changing something, so you were always doing something different, like through the entire game. And even when like the hacking mechanic reappears over and over again later on, even that gets changed up towards the end of the game. Like, you have like more crazy puzzles to go through, and it was just very unique. And I've never seen a video game do anything like that before.
Yeah, you're right about that. And the best thing about that open world thing is it wasn't overwhelmingly open world, you know?
No,
sometimes they could be like super massive to the point where you're like, it takes a while to like get your bearings of learning everything.
Yeah, dude. Yeah,
and
but
this one is more like a simplified, you know, and
I like that it's smaller, because
I do like that.
You have like Breath of the Wild, which is an amazing game.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah,
you can walk around that map for hours, you know. But NieR, it's just a little more confined. It's easier to get to places.
Yeah,
like you have the option to ride animals and stuff, but I honestly never really did that. Because
it wasn't so big to the point, because you could even teleport to places faster. But then it was not so big to the point. It's like, I enjoy the hike over there, you know, or like the sprint that you could do. I was like, oh, I could just run over there, cut this corner, and just get there real quick. And it's not that big of a deal. I don't need a teleport, you know. Well, plus, you know, you could talk to people on the way or find a side mission on the way, you know. So I thought that was pretty cool about it.
Well, I think the thing that the smart design and the way the world was built is that the world was constantly changing as you played the game. So the missions that you did, the things you accomplished, had a meaningful impact on the world around you. So you would go back to a location you'd been to before, but then the location has changed because of some mission that you completed.
Yeah, and kind of like that Goliath fight after that.
Right,
big
and
one.
that was one of the biggest ones because it had that reveal. You know, you had the reveal of the aliens, you had the reveal of that the war was now different, and you know, all those things, because like I said, like, you would complete missions, and then the missions you completed would change the world around you. And that's what kept you engrossed as a player. And really good open world games do that, like Breath of the Wild or Red Dead Redemption 2. Those open world games make sure that your missions have impact on the overall world. And then so that way there's constantly changing, and you're not just exploring this world that never changes. And that makes you want to stick with it.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add, Mike?
Pretty much that's majority is just the gameplay. I mean, I'll get into the story with the next question more. Okay. That's the other thing that I think is just done so well.
Yeah. How about you, George?
Well, at this point in time, I had already been familiarized with Yoko Taro's works a little bit. I had already played through most of Drakengard 3, and I had already finished the original NieR. So, considering how by this point the original NieR was beginning to gain momentum as kind of a cult classic almost, I was really excited from the get-go about Automata. And when it was first revealed, I don't even remember what event it was, but there were the first trailer that they showed where 2B is just hacking and slashing and jumping around, and then in the end she comes down with her sword, and then you see the profile of her face, and she's, you know, blindfolded and everything. I fucking lost my shit. I thought that was really cool, because that's when they showed the NieR title, NieR Automata, and that's when I decided, oh my god, I'm getting that game as soon as it fucking comes out. Especially once you start to learn that, you know, a lot of the complaints that people have with Yoko Taro games were seemingly addressed in this one, because they partnered with Platinum to improve the gameplay, and they partnered with Square Enix to optimize the game a little bit better. So those reassurances that combat wasn't going to be terrible, like with the original NieR, and that it wasn't going to dip into single frame rates like it did with Drakengard 3, that was enough for me to be sold on it, honestly, because I just trusted that Yoko Taro, Yosuke Saito, and Keiichi Okabe were going to be able to deliver a great game. And lo and behold, they did.
Yeah, they definitely delivered, man. I mean, I'll tell you right now, like Mike B was talking about how he would see the NieR cover and never played it and regretted doing so, and I do as well now. But in my defense, a lot of those PS3 covers, especially with games of that type, especially in North America, those game covers were like they all look the same. That box art,
very generic.
And the one thing
it was just like a side portrait with his arm like this, and I was like, "What's that?"
Yeah, and like the one that always threw me off is like the reason I never picked up NieR is because every time I saw it, I thought it was the game 99 Nights. I think that's what it was called. It was so
Nights,
right? So so I thought they were the same game because I never really remembered the names of them, and so I always stayed away from it. Because I knew like 99 Nights wasn't that great a game. At least it didn't meet what I was looking for in a game. And
I've never even heard of that game.
Yeah, I don't even remember what it was about. I just remember hearing about it and thinking, see, that one's not important. It's not a classic. But like with NieR, I would see the cover thinking it was this other game, and then I would avoid purchasing it. And in retrospect, I wish I looked more into it so I could see it. And then with NieR Automata, I remember hearing about it because of George, and when the demo dropped, I think it might have actually been the Japanese demo, and I created a Japanese account on my PS3 back in the day, and so I used that account in order to download the Japanese demo because George had told us it was out, and that's the version I played, which is of course the one Mike Prime was talking about with the hack and slash and stuff, and I thought it was really cool. But I'm not really a hack and slash guy. Like, people that love Devil May Cry and Bayonetta, like I like those games and I play them and I enjoy them. But like, I've never completed a Devil May Cry game. I still haven't completed a Bayonetta game, but I totally appreciate the gameplay styles that they go with. And so when I played that demo, I was like, hey, this is cool, but I don't know if I'll ever get into it. And then as George started sharing more about what was in the NieR Automata universe and the way it worked, and then I looked into it myself and watched gameplay videos, that I decided to finally give it a try. Unfortunately, it took until this year to finally do it. I started my playthrough of NieR Automata in January, and I only played it for a couple days, and then I think I got maybe about 8 or 9 hours in, and then I got distracted by something else, and then I came back and finished the rest of the game later. And I'm gonna have to tell you guys, as audience members listening to this, you have to play it to the very end. You can't just play 2B and then leave it at that, because it won't satisfy you. I was not satisfied after 2B's playthrough.
I would think sometimes people wouldn't know. Maybe sometimes someone would put it down and then just like never pick it up again. Yeah. So like I always think if you're selling it to someone, you tell them like, hey, just keep going till you get like a huge ending credits. Other than that, if you get like the regular credits over and over again, Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. When I finished 2B's story, I was like, okay, this is the game everyone's talking about. I mean, it wasn't critical in the sense like, man, these people are stupid, but in the sense that like, okay, I mean, it was a cool hack and slash, and the story is interesting, but it felt incomplete. And then when I understood that, okay, now let me play 9S's story, that's when I realized the brilliance of this game. Yeah. And pretty much once I started playing as 9S is when I got sold. I mean, I remember George was there watching me play the beginning of 9S's story when there was the little robot brother trying to revive his big robot brother. You might want to go back and
cry, bro. You want to cry. You're like, oh no.
Well, it's funny because
that is, oh no.
I made George so mad because I was playing around with the little robot brother and he tripped and fell, and then I went back and tested it out and did it on purpose, and then George was like, you monster.
That poor robot had not enough. You trash man.
I was such an evil man.
With this thing though, I got a quick story with my cousin, and of course you all know my cousin Jeremy.
Unfortunately,
I was trying to
Jeremy's a good dude.
I was trying this after I already played it, enjoyed it a lot. George sold it to me. Like, he pitched it to me really well. I love it. So then I was like, you know who would really love this is my cousin. Like, he will love this game because he already likes the whole technology and robots and androids type of storyline that have like roots of like, self-awareness and stuff like that. So he likes Ex Machina, Terminator, stuff like that. He's always been a fan of that kind of science fiction story. So I was like, he would definitely love that. And so I was trying to sell it to him. I was like, dude, you're going to love the story. He's like, but I don't like Japanese anime stuff. And I was like, it has that style, of course, but it's not overdone or overwhelming like it is in normal animes and stuff like that. So I told him it's not that bad for the anime style. It just looks that way. And that's probably the best. That's as much as it gets. And the storyline gets really in depth and deep. And then I think I was pitching it to him for like months on end. And then finally, I was getting upset because he had the Nintendo Switch, and he's like, "Oh, you guys gonna get Astral Chain? I'm gonna buy Astral Chain." And I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Because I'm gonna support Platinum Games." I'm like, "Oh my god, bro! NieR Automata is a Platinum game. You should totally get that one. I've been trying to tell you this for so long." And then he was still like not getting it, or he was not gonna try it or not gonna play it. So I finally just, for his birthday, whether he was gonna like his gift or not, I got him NieR Automata.
Hey,
so
there you go. That's
it worked out. It worked out well. It worked out well because he says he literally loves it. And it's one of his top games he likes. So
You're a good
and
cousin,
I
Mike.
just knew he would like it. It's just I needed that little push I had to push it on him a little bit.
I was gonna say, like, so he doesn't like Japanese games, but he was gonna get Astral Chain.
See, because he likes Bayonetta. I think it was just the Platinum Games. He would be okay with Platinum Games, and I guess that might have been my fault too for not being like, "Hey, man, it's Platinum Games," But yeah. But once he said Astral Chain, I was like, "Oh man, dude, I've been telling you to get NieR for so long, and it's Platinum Games." And he's like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then, but he still didn't get it, so that's why I had to just gift it to him, no matter what.
So far during our conversations, I really think we do need to do a podcast on Bayonetta, but I think it'd be nice if we did a larger podcast just on Platinum Games in general. There are
definitely
so many good games from that studio.
Yeah, definitely so.
Well, I thought it kind of shows what a budget can do.
Yeah. One of the cool things I remember Yoko Taro was saying in an interview, he loved having Platinum Games do the gameplay because he could just focus on the story and then go drink beer while they were doing the rest of the game.
Yeah. And you were saying it perfect earlier, Mike, is that at least the hack and slash part has that really strong Bayonetta feel to it.
Yeah. Especially like the dodge mechanic. And there's even a chip you can get later on that does like the witch time. Like if you want to.
Yeah.
So that was a nice touch. Like you always see their signature like gameplay things in all their games.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So we're gonna move into some deep stuff here. Yoko Taro's bizarre storytelling is extremely unique in modern gaming. What are your praises and criticisms of NieR's narrative? And this applies to both the original and NieR Automata. So, I don't know. Who wants to go first?
I could probably start off by asking George a question. And then maybe I think he could lead into it. Is it true that he says that he works from the end of the story and then goes backwards? Like I've heard something like that.
It's he's kind of said that before, but it's not necessarily that he finds out what he wants the ending to be and then work his way back, but that he thinks of a resolution for the story, whether or not it's going to be good or bad, and then he tries to make it into a good resolution. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like he starts with the idea of that, and then he takes the story through its natural conclusion, and if he gets to it, then great. If not, then whatever, But it's like he doesn't have a set ending in mind, basically.
Okay.
At least that's what I read. But then again, my information is a little bit older than.
Yeah.
I haven't read any of the interviews he's done since, Drakengard 3 and NieR Automata came out a couple of years back. So who knows what he's on right now? I think there was like a mobile game that he was working on, but
Really?
But I've seen some interviews with him, and the way he explains his storytelling that he tries to portray is, I think he looks for the shock and awe first of the ending, or how much, I don't know if it's a letdown, but a misdirection of like how the ending should be, or an ending should be. There isn't like a defined one. It's just kind of, he's going to go with an ending, and then I guess fill in the gaps with the, as he works on it or something like that. That's what I remember hearing, or something like that on an interview.
Okay. So if I can interject really quick. So according to his Wikipedia, it says his writing technique, described as backward script writing, involves outlining the ending of the story first and building the narrative backward from that point. So, I mean, the general idea is there. And I'm pretty sure that, you know, at some point he does get involved, or not that he gets involved, but the ending he does have in mind. That's the impression I would get.
Yeah.
But
But
also,
it's not a super rigid thing, I would imagine.
well, yeah, and I think it makes sense too what George said, because obviously all his games have multiple endings. Like there's different conclusions, even though many of the same events occur. Those events can still lead to different conclusions, and you'll see that in all the games where he's been the lead on. Where you know, we see it in Automata. Even the original NieR has multiple conclusions, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, and then I'm sorry, real quick, one more question for George. Pulling out the chip module, is that only just to get that other ending, or is there another purpose for it?
No,
You mean the one where you kill yourself?
Yeah.
it's literally just a little quirky thing. I
Okay.
guess that would make you look at it and say, "Huh, this is a Yoko Taro game."
yeah,
Kind of like how there's some things that can make you look at it and you'll be like, "Huh, that's a Hideo Kojima game, huh?"
Yeah.
right.
You know, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of one of his quirks to. He thinks suicide is funny for some reason. So for him, it's kind of like a joke, and it's present in most of his games.
And I guess it's also for attention for detail. If you pull out the module chip or the CPU, they're dead, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously.
So for the audience listening, for those of you who haven't played NieR Automata, NieR Automata has 26 separate endings, but what is it? 20 of them are like endings that
like
occur
19,
when little quirks occur, like
19.
pulling out your operating system chip, or there's a moment where if you kill one of the supporting characters, it ends the game right there, because then the story can't continue. But there's 19 or 20 versions of those types of endings, and then you have 6 or 7 major endings that are actually the completion of the main story as intended. And so just that quirkiness there's just that quirkiness in that game that allows that, you know, it makes you want to go back and play the game again, because now you have this opportunity to go back and discover these different endings.
Yeah.
The one I discovered by accident was the 9S one at the beginning. It's like, go investigate those robots, and then I walked off the wrong direction. And this is by accident. I walked the wrong direction. It's like, game over. You didn't, like, you know.
Right.
I was like, what the fuck?
I did. My favorite one was with 2B. I was in the middle of a battle, and I don't remember where, but I wandered too far away from like where I was supposed to be, and all of a sudden it said game over with the message saying like, no, to this day nobody knows why 2B just walked away from that battle.
Yeah.
So great. My favorite one is the one where Jackass asks you to eat the fish. And if you actually do it, you just die. You just straight up die.
Your gears get all gunked up from the oils in the mackerel.
It's a mackerel, yeah.
And it's funny because I thought
that character lived up to her name.
Yeah. I tested out that theory because in the game there's also robotic fish you can capture, and I ate a robotic mackerel thinking, well, it'll be different. No, you still get the same ending.
Wait, so is there a pro to fishing, or is it just for
there's some items you have to find that you have to fish for.
Craft?
Yeah.
Like, actually, one of the pods is found from fishing in like that city area.
The ruined city, in the ruined city. Yeah.
Because my problem is I haven't gone back and tried to complete everything yet, though, which I still need to do.
Yeah, my game is sitting somewhere at the 90%. Like, I only did enough of the fishing. Once I discovered the pod while fishing, I didn't really fish too much afterwards. But but I didn't know I could find a pod while fishing. It just happened to be there, which is another element to this game where you're not directly told what there is to find and what to do. A lot of the stuff you kind of discover on your own. I mean, what was funny is that I had no idea. So the way the game works is, in order to improve your character's abilities, you have this limited number of slots for chips, and different chips give you different abilities. Well, I played through about 15 hours of the game of 2B's story before I figured out you could expand your slots by buying them from someone in the village. So for 15 hours, I played this game with this limited number of slots, and I had such a hard, it was tough getting through some of those bosses and those enemies because I had a very limited number of ways to improve my character. And I felt like such an idiot because it was just one small thing that I missed while talking to her and had the game explained it to you, I would have caught it early on, but in that way you have to discover it. And I wasn't mad. I wasn't mad at the game like, oh, this is bad design. I was like, oh shit, well, that's my fault for not paying attention.
Well, I was actually frustrated because the whole entire time I see people playing the game, she's just in her one-piece suit with a thong on, or like that G-string thing, and I was like, why the fuck don't I have that? She has a skirt. I played through the whole game, and not till afterwards that I completed it. I was like, oh, you hold the both like thumbsticks, and she self-destructs, and it blows her skirt off. Like, I didn't find that out till way after.
That's an interesting take on self-destruct, by the way.
I'll be honest, I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, I knew you could self-destruct, but I never used it, so I didn't know that's how she removed it.
I think that's all it's there for. And I think it hurts everyone around you if you're like, it does a blast.
Yeah, it deals a lot of damage.
It does deal damage.
Yeah. And then you survive it. It's just you're like on your bare minimum of health and you have to like run away or something like that,
I remember in the beginning of the game, I pissed 9S off because there's a part where you're going through the diagnostic and he's like, he gets to the self-destruct part, so I kept turning it off. And 9S is like, I'm sorry, you have to turn this on, ma'am. And I just kept turning it off, and he's like, I'm afraid I can't leave this as is. And then, like, finally he's like, come on, I'm just trying to follow orders here. And then I eventually, like, turned it on and let the game continue.
Actually, that was one of the coolest introductions, too, is 9S doing the diagnostics, and that was you adjusting your sound settings, and it's telling you like, hey, put it the way you like it, basically before you continue the game, So I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, what's even better is that the game records it, so when you go back and play as 9S, then you're him dealing with yourself being an asshole.
Yeah,
oh yeah, dude.
I laughed my ass off when I got to that route because I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I did all this.
Imagine there's some people who actually, when they got to the settings, since this is the first time you actually have control over the game, they just left it there and went and did other shit, and then came back, and by the time they got to the 9S portion, they had to wait for like 2 hours.
Oh god. I can't believe that really happened this way.
That's awesome.
I mean, we laugh about it now, but imagine if it had happened to us. Would have been like, why the fuck does it not go through?
This game sucks. To set up your settings, it takes fucking 2 hours. I could have been making a sandwich right now.
I did sit on the screen for about like maybe a minute before I realized I could control it, but I mean, I wouldn't walk away from the game and just leave it there. Like, if I thought there was actually a problem, that's kind of weird.
So, like in the original NieR, there's only the one protagonist, right? You don't play as any other people in the game.
Well, you only, most of the game is spent as NieR, but your companions are just as main characters as you are, basically. NieR is the protagonist, but Kaine and Emil and the book are all just as essential to the story as NieR is.
I guess what I mean is, do you ever control those other characters directly?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so it's not like Automata, because like Automata, you play as 2B, then you play as 9S, and then you play as A2, who we haven't even talked about yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
In the original NieR, you just play as NieR mostly.
Okay.
As far as I can remember, it's been a while since I played I played it, but yeah, I'm pretty sure you just control NieR, Papa NieR.
Okay.
Why do you
So-
call him Papa NieR? Is it because of the Westernized story?
Yeah, the westernized
Yeah.
story. He's the older NieR.
Now I'm curious, George. Do you have a preference? What do you think? What do you think of them? Like, do you think the game makes more sense as a Papa NieR, or it makes more sense as a brother helping out his sister? Or do you think it works either way?
Honestly, I think it works either way, but they already made their mind up. They think that the brother helping sister is canon. That's why we're getting the remake with
Replicant,
only the
right?
brother helping. Yeah.
Okay, so it's based on
So
the
that-
original version.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's what's supposed to be canon.
So they were thinking in the West, they're like, fuck my sister, I wouldn't help her.
Basically, yeah. Unless you live
Brothers
you
hate
live
their
in
sisters,
a
I
couple
guess.
parts of the South, specific parts of the South. Then maybe you would say, "Fuck my sister," but I want to save her life.
Wait, I want to save her life so I can fuck my sister. That's why.
Yeah, there we go.
I think we've just ruined the podcast, guys.
Oh, sorry.
And we just
That's
watched
probably
probably
the-
them, I guess, right?
That was probably the like pitch meeting for Game of Thrones.
Oh my god. Shit.
Yeah, that was good. So let's talk a little bit about A2 because we've talked a lot about 2B and 9S. 9S's story, like Mike B had shared earlier, is essentially the same story as 2B's, with some of the times where he disappears and you do the missions that he does. A2, on the other hand, takes place after 2B's and 9S's story, and it basically brings the game to its conclusion. So how do you guys think A2's story, how well do you think her story was portrayed versus what came before?
I loved her story, honestly. Like, that whole third route was like the game becoming a sequel to itself.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's the climax of the game, I think, and I think it's absolutely what takes the game to the next level is that when you keep switching between 9S and A2, it does it at just the right time
perfect time.
too.
Yeah.
It's perfect timing, and you get to see both sides, and you visit a climax after climax after climax, and you see all these references from one another too, that it just intertwines the story so well, and it kind of puts it into a neat little braid for it to just lead up to the conclusion. And I think that little arc of storytelling from the moment that you start controlling A2 until the game's conclusion is gaming at its absolute finest.
The best thing about that too is you have the option to like go through A2s all the way to the end and then go through 9S, because every, like you were saying, they has chapters. You choose each chapter, it'll stop you and say like, do you want to continue as A2 or do you want to see what's happening with 9S?
That's true.
But it's optional. You could do the whole 9S and then go back and check out what happened with A2. Or if you want, which is the best way, you're saying, like, if you braid it, if you say,
that's
if you
what I
switch
did.
back and forth, like, it kind of gives a good storytelling of like back and forth.
Yeah,
you know?
I really like that, because I think that's the pacing that Yoko Taro and the team meant for the story to go towards. And while it's super cool that they give you the option of just playing either or, the way that they have the scenes just switch back and forth is I think the way that they meant the game to be experienced.
Also, what are the droids called? The robots?
Pods. They're just pods.
Yeah, the pods. I like how the communication between them, between those chapters ending. That was a nice touch. You know, I'm not going to go into detail about that, but the storytelling that just adds more to the story without, like, if you have questions about what's going on in the world, that's kind of giving you the answer. Their communication.
And it gives the pods life too. Like they go from being an accessory to being their own characters, and I think that was super unexpected and super badass too.
Yeah.
It was unexpected, but not out of place, I don't think, because the whole theme of the game is that, you know, there may be more to machines than what we think. You know, of at least the machines in NieR, and eventually when the pods, who are as far as we
Lesser.
know, entirely robots,
Yeah.
they still have this personality and they still have all these great moments with one another. You know, especially at the end when they're flying off with each other. You know, when he's saying that he feels embarrassed because he failed
Yeah.
the suicide attack. You know, he
Yeah.
led a suicide attack, but he failed, so he feels embarrassed. And the other pod said, "But that's okay because it's part of being alive.
Yeah.
It's just a string of embarrassments." And
Yeah.
and I thought that really resonated with me. You know?
Yeah, because along with 2B and 9S, those in particular, you get to see their characters grow from not being aware to being very aware of the changes that are happening to both them and the world around them. And
Yeah.
it's really fascinating. I mean, back to the being able to choose between 9S and A2's story. It's also a testament to Yoko Taro's writing and storytelling that you want to visit both those characters. All the characters in this game are they draw you in. You want to know what happens to them, and not just main characters. All these side characters that you meet along the way. You know,
Yeah.
you have the twins, the twin sisters that play a huge role that were formerly nurses, which are
Devil
very
and
important
George told me an
Yeah.
important story about them.
Yeah, and I could see George wants to share it now. So let's let him do that.
Wait, what are we talking about?
The twins,
The twins.
Devila and Popola.
Devil and Popolea.
Oh shit, no. Fuck. Man, there's such great characters. I mean, they're carryovers from the original NieR, and way back when they were antagonistic to NieR in a sense. They start out as these elder villagers, you know, that give you quests and everything, but eventually you realize that they're there to watch you and that they're not human like you are. So NieR turns against them, and kind of, because of Devola and Popola fighting NieR, basically the world ends. So a lot of people in the future, you know, which NieR Automata takes place 50,000 years or so, 20,000 or 50,000 years. Frank could probably check on that. 50,000 or 20,000 years after the original NieR, and there's still that stigma against those two androids, model of androids, Devola and Popola, because they caused the apocalypse, basically. You know, they caused humanity to go extinct, and because of this, they are unjustly persecuted, and they are forced to go from place to place. And there's this entire sequence that honestly was just fucking devastating to me, when you see their journey from one of the places where they're exiled to where they eventually end up in the resistance camp, and how people mistrust them, and how they had to depend on one another, and how they were injured along the way, and it was
even
just
their thoughts of
heartbreaking.
trying to make it. Yeah.
And despite all that, they still managed to find redemption by helping 9S hack and gain access into the tower, despite of how unjustly they've been treated. It's just honestly one of the crowning moments of the NieR series, where Devil and Popola help you, and you manage to break through to the tower. It was great. It was fucking amazing.
That was one of my favorite sequences, actually. I loved like that whole part. Even though I didn't know the background behind the characters, but I mean, they explain a lot of it to you, like in the game.
Yeah, well, while they're walking through the desert, and you see that kind of visual novel kind of segment to it, which was another thing. Like, the game even has a visual novel segment. You know, it has shoot 'em up, you know, hack and slash. It has, you know, little old school shooters.
Adventure.
Text-based adventure. What the hell? So it dabbles in so many genres, which I think is another thing that makes it stand out so much from everything else. And we were talking about side characters, actually, and another side character that I wanted to bring up was Pascal. Pascal was my favorite. Like,
saddest moment. Don't bring that up.
Yeah, it's
That's a tragic story too.
Yeah,
it's devastating how tragic his story is, and you know, depending on the choices that you make, the kind of conclusion that he meets. And you know, I don't know if you guys want to talk about how you guys, you know, made him meet his end, but I personally think that it was a mercy to just end the suffering right then and there.
I didn't do that, but
did you
because
wipe his memory or kill him?
No, I killed him.
He killed him. Yeah.
I killed him too.
I had a feeling that he would be someone I would have to buy things from, so I let him live.
He's like, but other than that, I would kill his ass.
I wiped Pascal's memory too. So it's funny because my reasoning for wiping Pascal's memory it was completely a personal emotional decision. It wasn't about what I was going to need in the game. It was like, look, Pascal is a good person.
Yes.
He's done good things for these robots. Yes. And it sucks to take that away from the world because the world needs someone like Pascal. And I just had a feeling that even after you wiped his memory, Pascal was somehow going to be able to find his way back to who he was. And of course, they drop that hint when you actually do that in the game. He starts having some like deja vu about, wait, why does this seem familiar? And they just kind of leave it at that. And you gave him an opportunity.
So many outcomes though, like with how devastated he was. Imagine that if he remembers what happened, kind of, or if it happens again, or gosh, it just felt so cruel in to leave a person as pure as and nice as Pascal alive in a Yoko Taro world.
Yeah. Well, see, and that's what's great about the storytelling too, is they don't shy away of being like trying to be realistic on how the world kind of is. You can't control things, or you can't control it. Like, it's not a story trying to give you a happy ending, or a story that's trying to say like, oh, it's going to turn out a certain way because this is what most people expect or what most people want. Mm-hmm. It's more like, you know what, bad shit happens and this is fucking happening and that's how it is. And that's how you got to deal with it either two ways. You wipe his memory, which is, I believe, is the same as killing him. And then you just destroy him or kill him. And, I guess the only benefit from wiping his memory would be he has a chance to start over. But,
See, but that's the thing. It's basically the same thing as killing him. And at the same time, you personally, for me, it was also it didn't have anything to do with gameplay. I just felt that at some point there is so much loss that he has to endure that just let him rest, man. He's
done enough.
He fought so long and so hard for those children, and then the children were taken away from him, and you can't really. His purpose is gone, and he basically asks for you to kill him. And who am I to deny him that request after how hard he's fucking fought,
Yeah. He doesn't want to be reincarnated either.
Yeah, that was my perspective.
Yeah.
If you let him live, I will say that it is heartbreaking to go back to the machine village and then
that's when I saw it in Bobby's stream. Yeah, he's selling the parts of the dead machines that he finds laying around.
Yeah. And he doesn't know what he's doing either. He's just digging through trash.
So you get heartbreak whatever decision you make.
Yeah, dude, it's awful. It's fucking terrible.
In some ways, I mean, the decision of laying him with, I totally understand where George is coming from. It is worse because imagine if he was aware of what he was doing. I mean, I can't even imagine what that would feel like. And it's like, I let him live because I was hoping there'd be some kind of way for him to be back. But in a way, it kind of feeds into that.
Like I was saying, hopeful thinking for the story.
Right. In a world where it's hopeless. Because one of the big concepts of this game is cycles, right? Things cycle through. When you play through 9S's story, you visit certain sections and 9S will go like, this looks familiar. Have I been here before? Have I done these things before? And he questions it, and it makes you wonder about how many times they've been through this cycle. And really a lot of that's what this game's about, where things come to an end, but those endings lead to different beginnings that ultimately end up resulting in the same type of endings anyway. That life is this constant cycle of hope and lack of hope, but that's life. I think that's part of what the main point Yoko Taro is trying to get through in this story, that your life is going to continue. And it's kind of the same thing with, like you mentioned earlier, George, that he treats suicide like it's a joke. And I think part of the reason he does it, like if you remember in one of the last missions for 2B, where you fight the religious group, I forget what they were called at the end. The extremism. Yeah. You see a lot of those machines jumping into the
abyss, basically.
Lava or molten metal pits or whatever. Yeah. Like they're killing themselves, and they think they're
indeed.
Right, exactly. And
they want to become as gods.
They want to become as gods, but part of the reason they want to become as gods is because they want to escape the pain of the world that they're living in. And so I think what Yoko Taro, to me, is what he's trying to say, and why he mocks suicide the way it is because people are using suicide as escape from the real world. Well, what you need to do is you need to endure and take what the world gives to you, regardless of how horrid it is. But some people can't handle that. And in this case, he's doing that with robots. And imagine someone, whether it be a Western or Japanese culture or Japanese game, where they're trying to do that with real people. I don't know if the response would be the same. I think people might be afraid of that kind of game and not respond to it as well. But by doing it with robots, it allows them to cover all those human ideals, but apply them in a way that makes people feel a little more comfortable with confronting them.
But you make perfect sense with that, because this is how I describe the game now after I've played it multiple times now, and I got Jeremy to play it. Is what I think it is. It's a perfect storytelling of the human condition without any humans in it.
Yeah, basically.
It's robots and androids fighting each other, and then you're looking at it, and when you play it, you're like, dude, this is the human condition. This is what every man or person struggles with in their life and existence. What they think, how they think, why they think a certain way, all that kind of things, you know, what broods hate, what broods animosity, what broods love, all that kind of things is brought up in this storyline or this storytelling, but it's just done through androids and robots. You know, we have that conflict of wars, like, why is war happening? And it's the exact same thing that's going on with them. It's androids versus robots, but you know, it's the same as the human condition. We're just humans fighting each other just because we're in different countries or different races. You know, it's weird. You know, and that's where I really connected with the game too, because it made a lot of sense to just how humanity feels.
You know, one of the things I thought was brilliant in this game was, I mean, I guess we're talking about spoilers, so it doesn't matter. But in the beginning of the game, like, I will say this game is very heavy on nihilism. So throughout this game, you're being told that you're fighting on behalf of the humans who are living on the moon, which is a perfect analogy to, like, you know, people on Earth believing in you know, existential power or something. So, and then, like, you know, in the third route of the game, or like, where you're basically told that there's nothing on the moon. That is, it's like that was mind blowing to me. I was like, holy shit! Like, that is, like, if you're a religious person and you're playing this game, man, you're gonna
hate it probably.
You're gonna freak out. Like,
you're like, fuck no, God only.
It's just, and it's not just the humans or the androids. It's the aliens. Like, they're another version of an existential, like, thing, and you find out that they're in this, like, underground, and they've been dead for who knows how long, you know.
But it was really good at that part too, when they also evolve and they create the George. What's the name of two antagonists in those games? The two long white-haired dudes.
The brothers.
Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve. Yeah, there we go. I'm stupid. That's why, because they're going based off the robotics, what the robots know of human history. So they're going based off of we have religion of, like, you know, Adam and Eve and God. Sorry, I forgot that name, but thank you, George. But, like, that's why they go based off of that, and then their ideals are based off of that too. They're starting to think of that, and they have, and then when you later on in the game, you go through, like, encryptions of files of all of humanity, but that's where they got all their information, and it's weird because they just make their judgment based on that information only.
Yeah, they're just like, you know, whatever they're told or however their people assume. Like, we've been doing this whole time, so, you know, I mean, it must be right.
Yeah. And it's weird because I can't fault them for that. Like, I can't hate those characters. I never hated the enemies. I never hated Adam and Eve.
I didn't either.
There was no, because most games, it's like you have the bad guy you hate. And then this one, it was like, no, I don't hate them. I understand, like, you know, every time they show them their storyline. Yeah. And I would think I don't agree with what they're thinking, but I don't hate them at all the whole entire time.
Yeah, they were antagonists, but they were not necessarily villains.
No.
And in the end, I think they actually, the game ends on a very positive note, and they did a very novel thing. Because they integrate themselves into the machine intelligence, and that's when they send out the rocket to, I don't know where the fuck they're going.
That way they can live their own life.
Haley's Comet. They're going to Haley's Comet, dude. They're going to trail behind it. No,
You're making this shit up, aren't you?
No, it's because people killed themselves thinking they're going to go behind Haley's Comet.
He's talking about Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate.
They castrated themselves first, and then they
And then,
Oh god!
then they drank the Kool-Aid.
I don't know what the point of any of that. The logic behind that event is insane.
Yeah.
I don't think there was any logic in particular.
Well, that's the point, is like the story of what they believe or what anyone believes was never like against anyone else's to like harm them in a way, sort of.
I just want to know what happens if they actually made it. Like if it was all real. Like if I was in that cult and I ended up on the spaceship or whatever, I'd be like, fuck man, we really should have rethought the castration part of this whole thing.
Hey, you know what?
I was really looking forward to fucking green bitches.
I think there's still a person who answers their emails, if I'm not mistaken. So you could definitely ask him that.
There's a guy, they said, you got to stay behind and answer emails, motherfucker.
Yeah. He drew the really short straw, so he's like, God fucking damn it. I guess at least I get to keep my cock and balls.
Huh?
I don't know. He may have to
He
give
was
those
the
up
smart
too.
one.
They castrated him and then left.
Anyway, we're getting off topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go back to
I don't even remember what the question initially was or where we
I
are.
think we started the last question.
It just had to do with Yoko Taro's writing style. We haven't gone really to the last two questions because
his writing style is so great. We've been talking for so long.
well, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many great examples in this game. Just in Automata alone, and I haven't played the other games, but just because of the story alone, I really do want to try to go back and play NieR and Drakengard, and at least Drakengard 3, 1 and 3.
Well, because George showed me too. He was like, check out this ending to Drakengard, and I don't know if it was 3 or the first one, but it was the one with the babies and stuff.
Oh, that's the first one. Oh,
and I was like, what the fuck? Like, now I gotta go play Drakengard. I was gonna play NieR 1 because I haven't played it, but now I gotta play Drakengard. Come on, man, you're getting me more interested in more of this.
Chronologically speaking, if you want to dip your toes into the rest of the Taroverse, you gotta start with Drakengard 3. And honestly, I would try to emulate it to see if you can get it to run at 60 frames per second. Because it runs pretty rough on the PS3. It honestly does. I mean, it's still playable, honestly, but if you want it to be a 100% enjoyable experience, I think you do have to emulate it.
Was it only released on the PS3?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
After Drakengard 3, you can go on to Drakengard 1, because Drakengard 3 does lead on to Drakengard 1. And Drakengard 1 is just miserable to play, honestly. You're not really gonna have a great time playing it, but it's important because it sets up the original NieR. And after you get ending, I believe it's D on Drakengard. It's either D or E on the original Drakengard. That's the one that leads into NieR.
Okay, how many times do I need to play this miserable game in order to get that ending?
It's very similar to NieR, in which there's a point that you can get to where it splits off into the different endings, so you're not playing it the whole way throughout.
Okay.
Yeah. You're just playing the different branches depending on which branch you choose.
Yeah, just to make a clarification for our audiences too, once you complete all the way through Automata once, then you can access different chapters, and that way you can go back and replay that last chapter in order to get the different endings, or go back to other chapters to try to get those silly endings from just the small things.
Easy access. That was great.
There's only one ending that you can only get on the first playthrough, and I can't remember which one it is. It's not one of the main endings. It's one of the side endings.
Silly ones, yeah.
Yeah. But there's only one. The rest of them, you can go back through the chapters and get them. All right. So we've talked a lot about Yoko Taro's writing style, especially with Automata. Another huge portion of these games is the music. I don't know who does the music for Automata. I don't have a specific name. I don't know if it's the same person for NieR. But what I do know is we all agree how important the music is to these games. So let's talk about the music. And
well, it's Mr. Keiichi Okabe. That's his name. He's the main man behind the soundtrack for Drakengard 3, NieR, and NieR Automata. I believe his role in Drakengard 3 was a little bit more limited, but he was still very prominent. But he is the mastermind behind NieR and NieR Automata, Keiichi Okabe. And I don't know. It's everything that has been said about this soundtrack. I don't think still even comes close to describing how fantastic it is. It's very emotional. It goes great with the emotional beats of the game itself. It resonates with the story in a way that moves you. In a way that very few games have managed to move me in a very long time. You know, it was 3 years ago, and I still think about it regularly. So it's yeah, it was crazy. My personal favorite track is the in the original NieR. There's the theme of Kaine comes in two versions. There's Kaine Salvation and Kaine Escape. And both of them are great songs. I really love them, and I think both of those songs are some of my favorite ones in that Keiichi Okabe has composed. I think they're great representations of the character, and the way that they play in game really strikes a humongous emotional chord with the people who play it. It's actually the song that plays when you finally clear the quest with Emil. I'm not sure if you guys remember.
Oh yeah.
When you finally get to the field of lunar tears and the piano starts going on.
Oh, I didn't know that was the other game.
Yeah, that was a callback to the original NieR, and it was hard to keep my eyes dry. You know, it kind of moistened the tear ducts a little because it was just such a callback. And I really love that particular moment of both audio and visual storytelling.
So I'm gonna say I totally love the soundtrack so much. My favorite is, I know it's probably the most generic answer for Automata, at least, is The Weight of the World. I love that one. And then it's weird because you get so many versions of it, but I really do love that credit ending version. Like when you get to the final credits, like that is the best version. So, dude, I love it so much. My girlfriend got me like the coolest gift ever.
Is it the music box? Oh, the
the Vibe one.
Yeah.
Man, it's fucking amazing. I love it. The only disappointment is it has that version. I think the Japanese version on it maybe. I like it just didn't have that game ending version. You know what I mean? Like the ending credits. And I don't know where to find that except online on YouTube. But there's no way to buy it like on a CD or a soundtrack because it's like 15 minutes long. Because it takes you like 15 or 20 minutes to finish the credits. You know?
Yeah.
And oh my god, I've listened to it so much, like a lot, dude. It's like, whew. I get emotional sometimes.
Yeah.
Dude, I could drink and get emotional, and I was like, I just play that song, and I'm like, dude, I'm just like wallowing in the stars of that song for some reason. You know, I like that a lot. And then my second favorite, and I can't say anything about the other NieR, and I have listened to their tracks for the first NieR since in that vinyl. They're all equally amazing, and they sound really great. But for me as NieR Automata, at least, I love the amusement park with the robots.
And for Automata, that's my favorite.
And mainly it's not because if you were to just listen to it, you'd be like, oh, it sounds like, you know, like a theme park and stuff like that. But what's amazing about that track though is when you play the game, it 100% suits the environment you're in when you're playing it. Instead of if instead of just like hearing it blindly without knowing what the game is, if so, anyone who hasn't played it or people who have, I'm pretty sure they understand who have played it. Once you walk through the like first archway, and you're like, dude, it's like walking through Disneyland, and then all of a sudden the music plays, and you're getting that environmental feeling of like I'm in an amusement park. Everything's like happy and go lucky. It's supposed to be great, but what you're looking at is not the same though. It's weird. You're looking at it like
it's really dark.
yeah, you're looking at like abandoned, or deserted fucking place that's all fucked up, but like it has that atmosphere still because of the music.
Yeah, and the robots going around.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but the first time I was such in shock at that place, I didn't even attack the robots. I'm like, oh shit, they're not attacking me. I'm like,
I think I killed one.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right. So
the first one was the tank. That was the one I attacked.
Yeah, the tank
it kind of pressures you to.
Yeah.
But even then,
All of you guys attacked that tank?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, like, so you get I don't remember if it's the pods or 2B or whoever that says, oh, we need to. I think it's 9S says like these machines are dangerous. We need to take them out.
Yeah.
And there's like a tank there, and it's just like shooting balloons. And stuff. And I'm just like, what? Why? Like, I wanted to tell 9S like, why? What the hell is wrong with you, man? Like, I'm not just gonna attack these guys.
Which is amazing. You don't have to kill it. You could just run up the steps.
Yeah.
But I didn't either. I thought I was pressured to. I thought I had to, and
so did I. Like automatically, it's the first thing I did, but I didn't realize you could walk past it until like my second playthrough.
Yeah, and it makes you feel like a dick afterwards because you're like, dude, these robots are having a good time.
They're just having a party, bro.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah,
party, pal.
I didn't attack that tank the first time, and I understand totally the pressure because 9S was on you about it, but I pretty much in my own head tell him to go fuck himself, and we just went up to the roller coaster. Because, like you said, those guys, they weren't doing anything. The game in a way tempts you to do it because you've seen a tank that attacks and you know what the tank's capable of. But in this case, you're seeing it shoot balloons. No one else has attacked you. Some of the robots are willing to talk to you, and it was just kind of like,
I thought I had the advantage. It's like I haven't been hit yet.
I don't never expect this.
I don't know if that has any impact later on in the game because I
haven't noticed it. Like the only thing is you get the core if you're trying to, like, it
just has items
or something.
But like it does have an impact of the game because I felt like shit about it later. It does. Well, I was like, oh shit, they were just partying, bro, and I fucked them up.
Later on in the game, though, I know we're trailing off of the music part, but there's a part where the game later on throws these really powerful enemies at you that have nothing to do with the story, but like if you return to an area that you've been in before later, there'll all of a sudden be an enemy that looks like a regular enemy, but it'll take you like 25 minutes to kill it because its health is ridiculous. And
that glow around them.
Yeah, so I remember I ran into the desert again, and there was a tank just like the one like that we're talking about. So I always figured that was my punishment for like killing the tank the first time.
About the gold tanks.
The gold tank.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, I deserve this.
So what's your favorite song, Mike? Prime.
Actually, I have two, and of course the amusement park one. That was the first time when I got there, I just like stopped moving. I just stood there for like a good 5-10 minutes listening to the track like loop over and over. It was just an amazing song. Like I don't know why, but like some of my favorite music is like the Castlevania music, and as far as video games go.
Yeah.
And for some reason that song just felt like it didn't sound like Castlevania music, obviously, but it had that same like shit. This is really good. Like I just wanted to get the soundtrack for this game at that point. But the other song that I really liked was I think it's called "We Are as Gods" or "We Become Gods." I don't remember, but it's the track that's playing when you're basically
with the cult, right?
Yeah, the cult. Well, no, it wasn't the cult. It was the second. Was it the cult? I can't remember. It was right before the end of the first two routes, when you start as, if you're 9S, you're playing as robots. If you're 2B, 9S is taking control of a robot and explaining things to you.
Yeah.
But it's that whole area. It's like a factory or something.
Yeah, if that's the one at the end of the game, that's the cult one.
Is it the cult one?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. But yeah, the song playing in that background I thought was really good too. But those are my two favorites. I don't have any from NieR 1 because I haven't played enough into it.
Yeah. I mean, I would think you can't disagree with any answer, because I think actually in general the whole thing was just amazing.
The entire soundtrack is incredible.
You can have
Your
preferences, but they're all great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I didn't hear, like, the music was just spectacular, and both, from what I heard of NieR 1, it was just as good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think my personal favorite from Automata, and that's the only one that I've played all the way through, is the theme from the Machine Village.
That was actually good too.
That's my ringtone.
Especially because that's where you end up from, coming from that very well, the amusement park theme. You come from there, and that music is like, it's great music, but it's also so abrasive and loud because it totally fits a theme park. And then you go to this much more subtle, calming music because you're in this village area and out in the forest. And
it also sounds tribal.
Yeah.
Like a tribal group, you know?
And that's probably my favorite theme, just because the transition between those two areas is great, and then it fits the what's important, because it has the vocalization, and it sounds like children, and that really lends to the calmness of the village, especially because Pascal's so focused on, raising the young in a safe environment. And so it's great. It's beautiful. But yeah, I mean, like you guys said, any song in that game can be anyone's favorite. It's such a great soundtrack.
100%. And I was thinking about that with what you were saying, the Pascal's village. It really flushed out more of the characters just in that village. Like, if you do side quests in that village, you get a lot of more backstory of the universe, more than anywhere else, I would think.
Yeah.
I remember my favorite one of the side quests from there was like rescuing the little sister, but she's a big robot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that was like one of my favorite quests, because she's asking about like humanity and like, what's sex? Like, how do you have children? And like, blah, blah, blah. And like, it's crazy because she's just she's a child, and it's weird, but she's huge, and she calls her big sister, but she's smaller than her,
Right.
And it kind of like reminds you that like perceptions of what you see is not the same of what it really is.
Yeah. Well, it's like you have the other robots in that village, like the women robots are putting on makeup, or you have the family where they have the mother, the father, and the son, or then you have those side missions where the mother has a son that keeps locking himself in the house.
And I don't know too much about it, but I don't know if George knows more about it. But what was this Jean-Paul? Like, I know Jean-Paul's a dick. Why is he a dick? Because he's based off a real person, right?
A philosopher, about Jean-Paul Sartre. Right?
Yeah. No.
I believe that his name.
Jean-Paul Sartre.
I think all of them are philosophers, even obviously Pascal.
Pascal is. I'd say the inspiration of it is really, really, and it's put into the game very well. So, I just thought that Sean Paul one was pretty funny. If you do a side quest, it gets really weird, but.
Geez, there was that one robot in the Machine Village who was letting people pick on him, and he was acting dumb. And the other robots were making fun of him. And then when the other robots went away, he was like, "Oh, I'm doing that because I'm trying to understand how we treat other people."
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember that, but he was like in one of the top in the village. And I don't remember that robot's name, but like it was a really small part of the game, just a quick side mission. But it was pretty impactful on the way you understand how the robots are developing, because now because you have that other robot who's a scientist, and he keeps asking you to invest in his inventions.
Yeah, and he gives you shit. The asshole he gave me shit. It's like, I gave you this money and you fucking.
Oh, now I remember that side quest. Yeah.
Doesn't he build a rocket?
Yeah.
Like a massive fucking rocket to go to the moon or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh god.
Yeah, because even after you complete it, you can see the building platform in the later stories.
Yeah. That's great.
Fucking robot. All right.
Those little details, man. I fucking love this game for that.
Dude, I wanted to go back to that with the pods. What I thought was amazing too, we were talking about the pods earlier, is it was really cool that once 2B was gone, I'm not gonna say why, but once 2B was gone, and then I guess he works with A2 now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Reluctantly.
Yeah. So it was crazy that you already realized the pod himself already has a characteristic, because he tried to imprint 2B's personalities onto A2's. You know what I mean? Like, oh well, this isn't normal behavior. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she's like, "Fuck that." It's like, you know.
I like how she just ignores it.
Yeah. She's like, "You're being fucking annoying."
The pod keeps like retwisting every what did she say, 15 seconds or something.
Oh yeah.
It's like, shut up.
Yeah. But it's cool because that's the aspect too, where the actual pod itself is remembering 2B as like its basis of learning, or what it's what it's used to, you know. So it's pretty cool that it's like trying to imprint on her, basically, in a way. And it works eventually, I think, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, by the end of the A2 had some of the craziest character development in that entire game.
It did.
Yeah.
She goes from hating machines and wanting to destroy all of them to wanting to save all the machines in the village, and
and the players'
for children with Pascal.
Yeah.
So fucking she was the one that stabbed the little robot king, and I was like, that fucking bitch. I'm gonna kill her. And then your perception changes, dude. This game is very, I don't know how to describe it, man. Like I would think myself as a person, it made my outlook as a reality as a person too. Like, how do I think of the world, man? I can hate things, or I could hate certain people, but I think my life actually changed because of this game, because once I played the game, I realized, dude, like, that shit doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything. The perspective of this game shows you how much humanity really means. And there's no humans in it. That's what's amazing. There's no humans in it. Just, yeah.
Cool. All right, so we come to our final question for tonight. So I'm going to preempt this. So for those of you who have not played Automata, when you actually reach the conclusion of the game, while the credits roll, the pods give you a choice on how you want to end your game. So basically, there's a bullet hell shooter during the credits, in which you take control of 9S's, what looks like 9S's hacking infiltration ship, and you're basically being attacked by the credits, and you're trying to shoot it and blow them up, but it gives you a choice to receive help from others. And initially, you can either accept or deny. You can try to do it on your own, or you can accept that help and move on, which is actually a big theme of the game.
Which is impossible to do.
I've tried. I still haven't succeeded.
I went through it for about an hour trying to beat it on my own, and
there's no YouTube video either. I've never seen someone do it.
I heard of one, but I don't know if it's legit.
Send me the link, bro. Send me the link. I want to watch it.
I don't think it's possible.
I don't think it is either.
It may not be, and that may be the whole point, that it's not. You need the help. But once you do defeat it, once you've accepted help and you do defeat it, it gives you the choice as to whether you also want to lend help, or if you want to not lend help. But if you do choose to lend help, it comes at a cost. And that cost is losing the entirety of your save game. And I don't mean it sends you back to the beginning and then you have your stuff carried. I mean, your
it's like you're just
zero. You go back to zero, bro.
Is wiped. It's like you're starting the game for the very first time. When you start, there is no save file anymore. And for me, I totally understand why that's tough decision. For me, I have saved games from games that I beat 20 years ago from my GameCube, on the memory card, because I I really am proud of the fact that I went through and I took the time and I beat a game, because especially if it's a good game you love. There are games that I deleted saves for because I didn't care, but there are other games when you go through them like this, where when you delete it, and it's not an easy choice. So the question is, what decision did you guys make when given that choice, and why did you make that decision?
I guess I don't remember who went first last time, but
It doesn't matter. I think.
Okay, bro. It doesn't matter. Go for it.
So I deleted my files, honestly, because I'm like, we talked about the nihilism part, or I did earlier, and I think that's the whole point of this game. It's trying to make you realize, like, that, what does it matter if you have a save game from, like, everyone? Like, if I 100% of this game, what does that mean? Am I going to play through it again at max level, like, with no challenge and no, like, reason to look for things, like all the quests done and all that? If I play the game again, I'm going to want to start it from the beginning and go through the journey again, because that, to me, that's more fun personally with video games. So in this one, it wasn't a hard choice. I just decided, delete my files, whatever, because if I played the game, which I did, I'd just start over from the beginning again. And like I said, that's kind of the point of the game. I think the game wants you to make that choice.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with Mike too. I think it's difficult to make that choice to not sacrifice your save file and not feel like a huge jackass. It's and I think it's another one of the brilliant aspects of this game, that even at the end, it still manages to kick you in the nuts.
Yeah.
And Yoko Taro still goes, haha, fuck you. And it worked brilliantly, I think, because even if you wanted to keep playing, I think you were forced to even if you think about it and consider it for a couple minutes, that just deleting that fucking save file is the way to go. At least that's my perspective on it. I'm sure somebody else can argue for the opposite. But
I'm not going to argue, but I did the opposite.
No. I'm just saying nobody's going to change.
I'll tell you right now.
Well, let me share mine then, since it's the same as George and Mike Prime. So when I was first given the opportunity to answer yes or no when the pod asked, I put no, not realizing that saying no would then end the credits and then it would take you back to the main game. Or take you back to the main screen. So it didn't delete any of my save. So what I went ahead and did is I went back and I went through the chapters and I tried to do some of those softer endings for fun, just to try to explain the game. So I went back and I tried to max out as much of the game as I could as possible. So I invested additional time, finding maxing out my weapons and getting these additional endings, just to go back and go through the yes part, go through the bullet hell, accept help after an hour of trying to get through it, and then to be given the choice of deleting my game. Like on my stream, I hesitated for entertainment purposes, but like George said, there is no doubt in my mind that it was the right thing to do. Because those people whose names would pop up when they would help you, they would die, sacrificing themselves to protect you.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the people that sacrifice their game save as well. And I know it seems like such a silly thing because it's a game and because it's digital material and you can always go back and play it. But as we've said before, the purpose of this game is to instill real life meaning into your understanding of the world you live in, not just to represent that in a game and go like, oh, hey, this is pretty cool. This is why we're having this discussion, because it was so impactful. And so there's no doubt that I was going to delete that game. And I did. And I was very satisfied with it afterward. Watching it clear up did not make me think, oh, I've lost all my progress. It just made me think, cool, now I can revisit everything with a clean slate. And I think that's, again, we come back to the idea of cycles. So that's my take on it. Mike B, we leave it to you.
All right, so I did the opposite, guys, and I'm the world's biggest piece of shit. And this is my story because of it. Because I went through that, and once it happens, when you're playing that credit scene, you'll see when it's like, "Do you want help?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." It's like, "Yes, yes, yes, yes," and it asks you like, because you're gonna fuck up a lot. It'll say this profile lost, and it says some random name. I'm like, random name, okay, random name. It's random names like, oh, he sacrificed himself for you. Random name, random ring, like, you know, the whole time, every time I got hit. So I was like, okay, cool, whatever. I just said yes, whatever. When I got to the end and I beat it, it's like, it tells you every single time your profile, like someone like died, it was their profile they gave up to keep you alive during the credits. And I was like, oh shit, that's crazy. You know, I just flipped out at that moment. And I was like, would you do the same for someone else and you lose all your progress and your save? You can never go back and do the same thing you were. So I was already at that moment. I was like, oh, dude, I want to go back and like do all the side quests. I want to unlock everything, you know? And I said no, like a piece of shit. So
why am I not surprised that you chose?
No. You know what happened? I didn't progress the whole thing. I didn't level my character up. I didn't do all the side quests. It ate at me. And this is how great the game is. Like it touches you in a certain way. I love the game so much. Like 2 days, I was like fucking just sleeping. Like I haven't played it in a while. And I was like, dude, I feel like a piece of shit. I was like, oh my god, dude. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna load up the ending game again. I'm gonna play through this, say yes, 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 and then I was like, yeah, I gotta delete it. Like it took me like it was eating at me, man. It was eating at me. I felt so bad, and I was like, fuck. I don't know if I redeemed myself for everyone else that I said no to, but oh god.
It's okay. As long as you saw the light eventually.
but see, that's my whole point in the impact of this game, man. Like it touched me. It was like I'm an asshole, dude. I was being an asshole, and I was like, oh shit, like I'm being an asshole, dude.
So what you're saying is that assholes have been touched.
Yes.
Oh man. And this is why we love NieR Automata.
Right.
Yeah. I had to go back, man. I had to go back. I had to redeem myself.
I'm proud of you, Mike.
Thank you, I guess.
Yeah.
Sorry for the other profiles I wasted.
Well, ultimately, they didn't go to waste. So you learned a great lesson. Oh man. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's a way for, let alone Yoko Taro, anyone else, to release something that's going to be as impactful. For me, this game is going to stay with me for, console generations to come. It's, I mean, damn. To say it's in my top 10 games gives it disservice. I mean, it's just in my top 10 media experiences.
Yeah.
Period. Whether it be a movie or music or anything, it was an incredible experience. It was a hell of a ride, and I don't know if anything like it could ever be recreated, or if anything could make you feel the same way. It's a one of a kind thing.
Oh yeah, I would want to like bring up something real quick, and I don't know if this is like intentional or not, or if it was part of the design for the ending credits. I don't know if George knows if this is true or not, but at the beginning of the game, 2B talks about killing the gods, right?
Mm-hmm.
She says like we don't even know if we'll ever meet our gods, and if we did, she would.
I hope we get a chance to kill them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's I think that's very much a Friedrich Nietzsche kind of play on that God is dead thing. Or,
yeah.
I don't know if,
It's just more on the nihilism of itself.
Yeah.
Because you can consider God as the kind of person who's responsible for your station in life, and for 2B, at the beginning of the game, she's already been stuck in that cycle of murdering 9S for a while.
Mhm.
So she curses her fucking station in life because she has to murder 9S once again, you know?
Yeah.
So she says that if we ever meet God, I hope we get a chance to kill him because
All right.
of how cursed she feels that she's been.
So what I've heard that was really cool and crazy about the ending credits was killing your god is killing your creator. So supposedly the credits is you're killing you're killing everyone who created NieR. It's their credits and their names, and you're killing them. You're killing God in that game.
Yeah, I guess that could be a little nod, intentional or not. Just adds on to the nihilism of it.
And plus, you need help from your fellow brethren to kill God. You know.
Well, it's an interesting philosophical question because there is a huge thing about how important the creator is in your role and the life that you choose. Do you have a choice in your life? Are these robots making the choice to live the way they want, or is it part of their creator's role? Just for them to find out that their creators are dead. You know, human creators have been dead. So to be so angry with the creators, but you know, she'll never get that satisfaction of getting vengeance against them. But then ultimately, does that matter to her? Is she going to be able to find a way to go move beyond that? And you see in the ending where, you know, everybody's dead, but then you see the pods show 2B and 9S's body as they're being rebuilt, and they may have a second chance. And then it begs the question: when if they wake up, if they retain who they are, does that mean they're also going to want to retain that vengeance that, you know, in particular 2B's case, to get revenge against your creator? And now their creators are gone. Is she still going to want to live? Is she still going to have meaning in her world?
Didn't they kind of hint that they're going to retain their memories in this one because of the pods?
Well, who knows? That's been,
it's like this time you're going to reset with the memories you had from the last time.
Because even the pods, the one with the male voice, made it clear that he wasn't sure how this would work.
Yeah, because even most of the machines are gone too.
Right.
Yeah.
They took off in a fucking rocket ship.
There's like another point to this game, I think, is just finding meaning for yourself rather than just following what the cycle is, I guess.
Yeah.
That's like what Bobby was talking about right now, is like, how would she continue? You know, would she still do like look for vengeance or try to find something else to fill her life?
Yeah.
That's the whole point of the game in itself too, is like trying to get you to like realize that there are important things to worry about, like beyond all the stuff you're just raised to believe, I guess.
Well, this is how the game changed my perspective of how I started playing it. Was literally I was like, 2B is what I saw on like the cover box art and what I've seen for everything. So when I started playing as 2B and we get to that point where, I mean, we know what happens to 2B, and then you play as 9S, and you play as A2, and the story keeps progressing, and I was like, holy shit! What the highlight, what you thought was the main character is minimal.
Yeah,
like that's not really the highlight of, like, you're not playing as one character from beginning to end, and it doesn't mean like her perspective meant something, but in the aspect of the whole universe, it was nothing, you know, in a way, sort of.
That's just one part of like a way bigger
story. And I was upset. I was like, oh my god, like I can't, like she's really gone. I can't play her anymore. I was like so upset. And then the biggest thing that really brought me back to is when I started the game, I was like, who's this 9S guy? Like some fucking tweak, fucking pretty boy looking like, he's not even a pretty boy. He's just like a tweak, dude. I don't know, a little skinny Japanese style Asian looking guy. And I was like, he ended up being one of my favorite characters. Like he is my favorite character, actually, probably.
Yeah, his description to like craziness is like amazing to watch.
Yeah. You're saying once it transformed, I was like, dude, this character is like great. What I was looking forward to was more like 2B, but like once I got 9S's story and how it connected everything together, I was like, oh my god, dude, this character is awesome. Like I sympathize with this character. I understand this character.
Yeah, if you think about it, 2B's story had the least development out of the three characters.
It's like 2B's Master Chief or some action character, you know? And then 9S was like the in-depth character. That's just what I took from it.
Yeah. Oh man, it's good. And I think again, like, let's say the main character was 2B and they only focused on 2B as a main character, then they would have followed the same template of other games where you have a singular character that changes the outcome of everything. And the major point in this game, that's not the case. 9S and A2 couldn't have accomplished what they accomplished without first 2B going through what she was going through.
Yeah.
You know, had they not run into 9S in the Forest Kingdom and they were able to protect the king, or I'm sorry, if they had not run into A2 when she killed them, that wouldn't have led to them, you know, wanting to chase her down and then having to deal with the twins. If the twins hadn't been born, if they hadn't chosen to attack the Eve immediately and instead give them a chance to, you know, develop and grow and communicate, it may have never led to any. I mean, these are all things that your choices lead to these things, but it's not a single person's choice. It's all these people who make these choices that impact each other on the long term. And and I think that's why it's so important that when you play this game, you have to play through all three of those scenarios. Otherwise, you end up like me at the end of 2Bs, and you think, well, I mean, there wasn't much to this.
And I've met people like that. I'm like, did you finish NieR? And they're like, oh yeah, it was all right. I'm like, well, did you play beyond? Did you play it more than once? And they're like, nah, why? I'm like, play it 2 more times.
Load your game file and play, motherfucker.
Right.
Keep going until it stops. You know. Yeah.
All right. I was gonna go ahead and close this out. We're about the 2-hour mark. I think. I think this went a lot. I don't want to say a lot better. I guess I didn't know how well to expect. I think this is probably the most in-depth types of conversations we've had about a game yet so far on these podcasts.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a
Well, because
testament.
it was just about one game as opposed to an entire series.
What was the last question? What was the last question?
No, we already did the last question.
The
last question was, who did you choose at the end?
Yeah, we answered that.
Yeah, we answered that, man. We've been talking about it for a while.
What?
No, the last question wasn't who you choose. The last question was what choice did you make about deleting your save file or not?
No, the last question was who did we choose, A2 or 9S at the ending?
No, that wasn't the last question.
That's not even on my list of questions.
You created that question.
But I chose both because you have to get to the other ending.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I initially chose A2, and then I went back and did 9S's.
Oh, that's messed up.
Which part? Choosing A2 first? Or
Yeah.
going back?
9S
I chose 9S first.
Yeah, I chose
9S because I sympathize with him. I was leaning towards A2 because she had tits and ass. But, you know.
I chose A2 because I would fight better with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Although with 9S, the hacking thing is a huge advantage, I will say.
Yeah. All right. I didn't mean to. I'm cool.
No, it's fine. It was a good question that we hadn't thought about. Next time, send me the question in advance.
I'm telling you, it was there. I have a response for it in my notes.
Yeah, you have a response for it in your notes, but it's not the set of questions I texted you.
I don't have this anywhere, like in the material Bobby sent.
All right. Cool. It's just.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. It was really great talking to you guys about NieR in general, but especially being able to talk about these things in Automata. Anything you guys want to add before we clear out?
I'm really looking forward to the remake that they're gonna push out for NieR Replicant. We haven't played NieR Replicant in English yet. So, I mean, even though the differences between it and NieR Gestalt are very, very small, I'm still really excited to hear about it, and I'm hoping we get a release date for this year.
Yeah.
So, looking forward to that. Stay tuned. I'll probably write about it at some point.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Great articles, man. Check out his articles, too.
Fingers crossed. All right, guys. Well, thank you again for coming out tonight. For those of you listening, thank you for tuning in. We will be back in a couple weeks with I'm not sure. I think we're going to do a Mortal Kombat one next, but I got to get that one put together. We'll see how it goes. But thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Later, guys.
Sure.
And so closes our take on a series that no doubt leaves endless possibilities for discussion. What did you take away from NieR? I have the utmost confidence that your perspective will differ greatly from ours, and that's what makes this story compelling, beautiful even. It challenges our traditional notions of life and love in a way that we rarely consider on our own. How could we possibly come to the exact same conclusions? In a way, this questioning bears little on the world around you. Instead, it is designed to help you question your own beliefs, to assist you in discovering who you are and who you want to be. Most importantly, it reminds us that change happens whether we want it or not. How we respond to that change in the limited time we have defines who we are. And if you are not who you want to be, there is always a chance of redemption. This episode's music selections come from the NieR Automata original soundtrack. The opening piece, titled Pascal, was composed by Keiichi Okabe and can be heard during a visit to Pascal's village. The closing music, titled Grandma Destruction, composed by Kuniyuki Takahashi and Keiichi Okabe, plays during various boss battles. Check the description for links to the audio tracks. Well, that's it for this podcast, folks. We'll be back in 2 weeks with an episode on... Peace!